Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and another episode of Dump and Chase. And although the news doesn't have as much as last week, there is still some stuff to talk about this week. The Macklin Celebrini contract, a big one. San Jose also getting some stuff done, as well as some other teams getting some contracts done. So the RFAs that are left on the market, some big names still out there, which is kind of crazy, maybe a little bit concerning. We'll talk about that. Of course, some other pieces of news, as well as some maybe value picks of past drafts. Yes, something I'm getting into on my Instagram. But if you haven't already, speaking of that, make sure you go like, subscribe, ring that bell, and comment if you haven't already for this. And go check out my other socials, ZS Hockey, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, obviously, and all of the other good stuff. But look, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the news. And over the last couple of episodes, it feels like I've went into the contracts that have already been done. So let's leave those just for a little bit later. And let's start with the RFAs that are still left on the market. Yeah, a couple of big names as we see on the board here. Cutter Gauthier, Adam Fantilli, Alexander Nikitschin, Zach Bolduc, Simon Edvinsson, Nikita Grabenkin, Arbor Xhekaj, Vincent Ioro, and Kevin Korchinski. Now, this one is a little interesting, and we're going to start with the bottom here in Kevin Korchinski. Yeah, guy that hasn't exactly panned out in Chicago. Someone who maybe needs a fresh start, someone who just maybe needs more time. There's a lot of ways that I think you could look at a guy like Kevin Korchinski. And again, it's not like he's older. He's 22 years old. He's an RFA. He still has some time. Maybe hasn't looked insanely great when it comes to being in the NHL. Pretty good in the AHL. Like nothing crazy, but pretty good. And you're wondering, for a guy who's maybe a little bit more of a two-way now, you could say offensive, but definitely not defensive defenseman, where does he fit in this system? Where does he sit? And the thing is with Chicago, they haven't exactly been able to figure that one out. And there's been a couple of names here, right? Like Kevin Korchinski is just the one of a couple, and Artem Levshinov, right? He was supposed to take somewhat of a step. You're not expecting him to go for 60 points in what was really his first full season, but you know, he never shined. He never took over. It was never consistent. I think that's a good way of putting it, which is why they went out and got Bowen Byram. Now, this obviously does not push out a guy in Kevin Korchinski who sits on the left side, but it is worth noting that there is a little bit of angst, a little bit of nervousness when it comes to what he could look like as a player. And yeah, I mean, I think you do have to go some type of short-term deal, low AAV, and just see where it goes, right? Chicago is still trying to build something. They still have a lot of young names, guys who are looking to make some big moves for themselves in that way and for the team, right? Just take that next step as a team, but also have those wins as your younger players. Kevin Korchinski coming up, this is going to be a really big year for him, right? 6'5", 185. He's a good defenseman. Now, would it be fair to say that like maybe he's hoping for maybe more of a role, but also a fresh start? Yeah, I could see that. I mean, a lot of teams right now are looking for younger defensemen like that, looking for guys who can make that step, who can be just a difference maker. I think he still has that. Obviously, he's 22 years old, but he just hasn't seen with the numbers. Like, even if we just go and look at those quickly, especially when he's being 13-23 in terms of ice time last season, through 13 games, granted. But you know, he plays almost a full season at 19 years old, has 15 points. Okay. Next season, not as great, 16 games, 13 games. It just hasn't been there. Where do you go from here? I think that's one thing that you kind of have to figure out. Like, we're not going to go through every, specific thing for each of these guys, especially for maybe some of the lesser names in that case, but yeah, it is something to keep an eye on for Kevin Korchinski. What is he going to look like? Like, what is his contract going to look like? Vincent Ioro, I'm not going to go into him too much. Definitely a depth guy, someone who had to step in at certain times for the New York Rangers, but wasn't anything consistent, obviously. He was with San Jose for a bit. He was with the New York Rangers now. Is he going to be a guy on their defense core come next season? Probably not. Is he going to be a depth guy? Yeah. So I'm not expecting anything crazy from that contract. It's nothing too insane to go into. Arbor Xhekaj is an interesting case, especially for Montreal. Like, he didn't play the full season. And, I mean, Were you expecting him to? No. He had 13 games in the playoffs, had 2 points, was definitely a physical presence. 4 points through the whole season, 65 games played. Has been a pretty consistent guy throughout this lineup. Obviously, not every game. He's had his times where he's been taken out of the lineup for someone else. Sometimes that was Jaden Struble. There was other times where it's just more of a depth defenseman that's coming in. But yeah, what is that going to look like for him in his future? I think he probably can get something similar around that, maybe actually a little bit more, to be honest. A short-term contract, max 3 years. I don't see it going any longer unless he gets some good AAV and it's just to stretch it out, whatever it is. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's going to be something short-term. He is a serviceable bottom pair defenseman. I think he can be that, right? Now, his defensive metrics aren't exactly insane. They're not going to pop out at you. Usually they're not exactly going to be that great, but he is a physical presence. He does bring something that I think a lot of teams really covet. Some like to say that it's kind of fallen out in that physical presence, that menacing guy on the ice. I still think it's there. A lot of teams covet it. Montreal needs that. They need that type of guy. He's also just a good guy. I feel like you always hear about stories about him, and how he is with the guys in the lineup. So I don't expect him to be dealt. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. But I just mean as a whole, teams covered that. I think he's going to get some type of a solid contract. We'll see what it looks like in the future for him. Nikita Gorbenkin, former Leaf Flyer. He's an interesting case. He's very lighthearted. Seems like a pretty good dude. 23 years old, can play both wings, 6'2", 209. Has that physical presence. 14 points in 55 games. Another guy who he's going to be in that bottom 6. Doesn't really look like he has a spot in that lineup right now. If you're Gorbenkin, you're probably hoping to get some term. The money isn't going to be insane. You're probably going to get some term, likely going to be a 2-way. We'll see what it looks like. Probably similar to the 875, maybe like a 900. He's a serviceable guy. He's young. I genuinely think he could be like a fourth liner in this league. But just right now for Philly, I think with so many names, you looked like Barkey came up, Bump came up. There's a couple of names that they already have in there. You have Couturier, who's playing bottom 6 minutes. He's not going to come out there because he is serviceable, aside from his contract. You have Cates, who's playing that third line. You have a couple of guys just on the wings who are going to be in that lineup over him 10 times out of 10. So for Gorbenkin, I think he could be a guy there. I just don't see where the space is. You know, I think you have to see another, not full season, like you got 55 last year, but I think you need to see somewhat similar, like even like 65 games. Just you got to see. I think he can hit 20 points. That's all I'm saying. I think he can be a serviceable depth guy who could be physical. We'll see how it goes. Like Gurbankin, really, really good personality. Moving on, Simon Edvinsson, 25 points in 72 games, 9 goals. With how everything's going in Detroit, you need this one to work out. You need this to be a good contract. And considering that they don't have a GM technically right now, technically, Yzerman still is there until they find a new one. But I don't think they're going to let him handle a contract. We'll see. Maybe it's the assistants that get into it. But look, Simon Edvinsson, this contract needs to hit. It needs to be good. It needs to be long-term. You're hoping it's going to be that. He's going to be a big part of your lineup he already is. So, he's not going to be the, at least you're hoping he's not going to be the full point producer of that back end. You leave that for the Mo Siders. You hopefully leave that for the Axel Sandin Pelikas of the world once he kind of hits his stride, hopefully for the Detroit Red Wings, they hope. He played big minutes, almost 20 minutes a night last season. Things haven't went well for Detroit. We know that. Everyone knows that with how their season has been going, how things have been kind of moving for them. But it's worth noting that with a lot of these teams, with a lot of these guys, what are you going to get from Detroit? Like what is realistically a contract going to look like from Edmonton? Well, what we've seen jump out, Clark gets a contract. You saw the Michkov contract, and he's going to get paid. Now, is it going to be similar in years? I mean, you'd have to think so. Obviously, Detroit would like that differently. They'd like to get that a little higher, but the money is going to be robust. And I don't mean like he's going to get like 11 million or something like that. But you're going to have to prepare for him to get like a good amount of money, because he is and has looked arguably better. So for Simon Edvinsson, I mean, this one's going to have to hit. It's going to have to be good. There's a lot of other things that Detroit's going to have to figure out. We'll see how this one goes. Going back to Montreal, Zach Bolduc. He was one of my guys who I think is going to break out this year. That left side is so open for Montreal, and they're trying to fix it. You know, you've heard the Kirill Marchenko rumors. We haven't seen anything move from that yet. You know, outside of that first line where you see the Cole Caulfields, depending on where they play, sometimes they switch it up. But like you see the Cole Caulfields and your Slavkovskys, it drops off right now. Like sometimes you'll have Newhook on that left side. Right, other times we have seen Bolduc. Laine's stepped up sometimes. He's been right and left and everywhere in that lineup, and now he doesn't even have the contract. We're not talking about Laine, we're talking about Bolduc. 30 points last year. Had a really good start to the season, and almost 12 minutes a night. He tapered off fairly quickly when it came to that start, but he is good. Give him consistent minutes, I think, in that middle six, top six. I think he can really be that guy. Maybe even second power play time, perhaps. But he's an interesting case. He's a really interesting case. I think this is going to be one of those short-term deals. See what you got. Let's see what happens. I'm interested. About a guy in Zach Bolduc. I think that he can really step up. I don't know if he's going to be that long-term guy who's going to just fix it. Maybe. I don't think it's going to be. But if he steps up, he gets like 40 points, mid-40s. I don't think that's terrible. Obviously, you want more production, and if you go and get a guy like Kirill Marchenko, he's going to give you that and more. But I just think it's really interesting to see like what you could get from that. Like Montreal has a lot of things that they want to fill, right? Like, we've talked about their back end. What is that going to look like? We've talked about the winger side. What is that going to look like? Their center position is something they really have to figure out. Like Phil Deneau is not going to be that guy for the long-term future, right? Jake Evans is not going to be that guy. Kirby Dach likely not going to be that guy, or Newhook. Like all these guys are serviceable players who can play certain roles. Some of them longer, more like can do the full season. Others we just haven't seen. Example, Kirby Dach has not been consistent, unfortunately, with injuries. So that's probably the one thing you want to figure out if you're Montreal before the winger side. Now, if you can figure that one out first, okay, great. But I think we all know what the real challenge is, right? You want to get a player to play with Adam Fantilli, right? Or whoever's going to be on that second line, depending on how some of these guys progress. Right now, it's Fantilli. We'll see what happens in the future if it's Caulfield again. Things to talk about for Montreal. But yeah, for Bolduc, I think that could be an area where he could excel. I think it's going to be a short-term contract. It's probably not going to be anything that breaks the bank, but it is something just to keep an eye on. Alexander Nikishin. We heard his name come up a couple of times in some big deals. And the biggest one was Connor Hellebuyck for the Carolina Hurricanes. Yeah, he didn't turn out, I think, as well as I think Carolina was hoping for him to be. And this was, now granted, let's take a trip down the full career stats line. This was his first season, and he's 24 years old, but 33 points in 81 games isn't bad. Maybe they were hoping for a little bit more progression on the defensive side, him being a 6'3", 218 defenseman who can play both sides. Yeah, he's an intriguing guy. He's an intriguing young defenseman, but clearly Carolina just is not on the same page with contract negotiations. I remember it being something like, and it's probably different now with all the contracts, but I remember it being something like 6 to 8 million short term. I don't exactly know what they're hoping to get, I guess, in that case, but he is a guy who I think a lot of teams are coveting right now. Like, he's not offer sheet eligible, so obviously you're not going to see anything like that. If he was, I could see him getting paid. Like something similar to what like Carolina essentially did to Montreal with Jesperi Kotkaniemi is make them make a move, right? So is he still going to be a trade piece to dangle? I think so. What is that going to look like? I think Carolina is trying to exhaust every option, right? If you're trying to go back-to-back, I think that lineup, that defense core, you can do it. I've been saying that for years prior to when they won, but you just never really saw that step up from them. So in terms of goaltending now, you have Peter Kochetkov, who missed the full season. I think it was the full season. He may have played like 1 or 2 games, but I think he missed the full season last year due to injury. And then you have Brandon Bussey, who played really well in the playoffs when he needed to play, but isn't like, is he going to be that tandem guy? Like, what is Kochetkov going to be like? I think that's a really big question they're trying to solve right now. Is what is that going to look like? And I think if you're Winnipeg, you're probably asking for Nikishin. I hope you're asking for Bradley Nadeau. You're probably going to need to take back a goalie. So is that Kochetkov? Probably. So does Carolina want to do all that? I mean, there's ways to look at that, but Carolina's one thing to look at. Like, I think Nikishin, when it comes to him, I think there's so much more there. I would not want to sign a guy so quickly, especially when a Shea Gostisbehere, who on a steal of a contract, and we're also doing that on the Instagram as well, $3.2 million going into his last year. He's going to get paid once he hits free agency, whether it's Carolina or not. So Nikishin, who's more or less looked at it more of an offensive guy than a defensive guy, like, I'd like to have him around. So I'd be interested to see what happens with his contract, to see what happens with him in Carolina. They have the cap space to do it. It just depends on what's going to happen with him. Adam Fantilli, we've heard everything, a 5-ish year contract, 13 to 14 million, maybe even less years. If it's longer term, it's better. 59 points, 82 games, 24 goals, 35 assists. Yeah, if you've watched my video on him, you know that I'm not a massive fan of the deal. Like, you know that if this is what it's going to look like, I'm not a massive fan. And shout out Daniel Briere. He kind of switched this whole thing of what guys are going to get, even if they're worth it or they're not, right? You go swing for the fences to try to get a defenseman, even if that's not their worth. That's what you got to do sometimes. You got to make moves. So now with that Leo Carlsson deal, 5 years, $18 million per. Now you're looking at 13 to 14 million for Adam Fantilli, who arguably, like, with his full career stats, has been pretty similar to Leo Carlsson. But I think the biggest thing that myself and I think a lot of other people have made the connection with is the progression, right? You can look at it from the points perspective and say, okay, like, yeah, they look like pretty similar, like what they've been able to do, but it just hasn't been that. It's although the points overall have been similar for these two guys. And we'll push out Connor Bedard in this case, because obviously we're just talking about the guy who just got the big deal. You can maybe speak about Connor Bedard, how he got $15 million, but let's just compare for a second. If you're looking at these two cases, and keep in mind at the time that Anaheim taking Leo Carlsson in that draft in 23, that was a little bit of a shocker, because everyone thought that Fantilli was like, okay, he's going number 2, Carlsson at 3. It wasn't a massive shock, but it was like, whoa, like, hold on a second. So when you look at these two guys, progression hasn't been the same. Points have been the same. I think Leo Carlsson has taken more steps to be a more complete player, to be more of a guy who can lead, being on the score sheet in certain moments, take those moments and run with them. I haven't seen that from Adam Fantilli. And granted, we haven't seen Columbus in certain situations that Carlsson has, specifically playoffs, but I haven't seen that next step up. I haven't seen that next gear for Adam Fantilli, even though the points have been somewhat similar. You just haven't seen that. And I think that's the one thing that kind of separates them both. And I think it's the one thing that we're kind of seeing is that the Fantilli camp is really trying to take advantage. They're not saying, let's go to 18 or 17 million or whatever it's going to be. Let's go a little bit more realistic. We're going to take more of that pay jump, but 13 to 14, where things are going right now, long term, probably not as bad. Short term, not my favorite. So for Adam Fantilli, again, we'll see what this one's going to look like. And again, a lot of these contracts we're going to have to see. Cutter Gauthier, 41 goals last year, 76 games, 69 points. This guy's going to get paid. And again, the Daniel Briere effect. Yeah, he's going to get paid. And I think a lot of people, if you're the rumors, will see if this is truly what it looks like. I always forget that he was born in Sweden. Crazy. But crazy. What is he going to get? Cutter Gauthier, a guy who 41 goals last season, was a big part of their success, a big reason why they did so well. He's going to be asking for a lot because Leo Carlsson, no one's blaming him for taking that offer sheet. I'd take that offer sheet in a heartbeat, right? He was asking for, what was it? It was, 13? 12 or 13? It might have been less, to be honest. And Anaheim wasn't even willing to go there. And I think eventually when they got there, when Carlson already knew about the offer sheet, and when they finally got there, they said, 13 million, or it was like 12 million. And he was like, no. Look at the deal I just got. 18 million per over 5 years. He signs it. No one blames him for doing that. The Ducks match it. They keep him. But now you're setting a standard. And we all saw this one coming. We all knew this was coming. And you got to sign Michikov. That one went ahead because of, waiting too long with other defensemen who were pretty similar to him. Shout out Brian Clark. Shout out some other guys who got some deals. Cutter Gauthier was next on the list. This was not a question. And now you've put yourself into a corner again. Right? Like, we're going to be talking about this for a while. Like, there's been rumors that Cutter Gauthier isn't going to take a single cent less. And I think it's probably more of like a 16 million, 17 million-ish type contract. You're hoping you get him for 15 or 14. It might not be that. So I could see something like where he takes a 1-year deal, bets on himself, and just absolutely pops off. If he scores another 40, 45 even, Anaheim's in a spot. They're already going to have to deal with it this year with their cap space. Right? Someone's going to have to go. Whether it's Chris Kreider, Frank Vetrano, Alex Killorn, whoever. Those are just the big names that make a lot of money that you're going to have to get rid of. That, unfortunately, because you did this, you're going to have to attach assets to. Now, to be fair to the Ducks management, no one saw this type of thing coming. We knew that the cap was going to go up, contracts are going to go up. That's what it was going to be. Right? Okay. But no one thought it was going to be this quick, this just fast, right? So I think, you can maybe cut a little bit of slack, but let's not do it too much considering that you shouldn't have waited this long. But yeah, those are the RFAs. Let's move in to the guys who just got new contracts. We'll start with San Jose. Yeah, Macklin Celebrini, 5 years, $18.8 million, making him the most, I want to say it this way, most expensive player come not this season, but next. 115 points last year, 45 goals, 70 assists, 82 games played. Almost at one point willed that team to a playoff spot. It was getting close. Didn't happen, but it was getting close. Yeah, he's so good. I mean, the jump that he took from his first season, where again didn't play a full season, 63 points, 70 games, 25 goals, 38 assists. Makes that jump, turns into what we knew was a franchise guy, but a just absolute leader, goes to the Olympics, leads in points. Like, if you want to talk about a full season just turning out so well for a player, this is exactly what you're looking for. Everything aligning from how he led the team. What was it, about 50-point difference from the next guy up, which was Will Smith, which was his line mate. He goes to the Olympics, looks absolutely stellar with veterans, and at times looks like the leader, works hard on the boards, makes up for his mistakes, and just so many other aspects. You talk about turning a situation in San Jose that just looked absolutely dim. We all knew they weren't going to be great this year. They weren't. They got really lucky with their pick, getting Ivar Stenberg. That's a whole other conversation about what San Jose is going to look like, and I think we've kind of already talked about it. But you go and get that. and you add, and now you say Macklin Celebrini with other weapons, with a better team. What does that look like? And, I think a lot of people are going to get really mixed up with the cap limit of a contract being $20.8 million, him saying he's going to take a pay cut. Granted, it is a pay cut, about $2 million. He could have asked for the max, and Mike Grier admitted he would have given it to him. So when it comes to Macklin Celebrini, I don't blame him for getting that deal, right? You're the highest paid player. He deservedly is the highest paid player. What is he going to look like next year? I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Like, is this him tapping out at about 115, 120? Is there another step where we've seen with McDavid, Kucherov, McKinnon, where he's hitting that 130 mark, that 140 mark more? Like, what does that look like for Macklin Celebrini, right? Is there another step? Does he take a step back? I think that's what you kind of have to weigh here. Like, San Jose, possibly a playoff team. Not a safe playoff team, possibly a playoff team. So I think that's kind of the tough balance that you have to make with San Jose when we talk about this contract. And we have another one to go into with San Jose, but I think that's the one thing you have to think about with Macklin Celebrini. He's so good, but what is the limit with this guy, right? Is this close to, or a little bit more, a little bit less of what we're going to get on a consistent basis? Either way, it's very, very good. But yeah, he's just what he does on both sides of the puck offensively, being a leader, like he's going to be a captain. The way he handles himself, right? So it's exciting. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens with this. And San Jose gets another piece of business done with Colin Graf. 46 points, 21 goals last year in 81 games. He gets a 3-year, $425 million contract. I think you really want more term on this if you're the San Jose Sharks. I think there's also another way in looking at this, and we'll pull it up here quickly when we go to San Jose, we're almost just fell for a scam, I guess, on Puckpedia. But we'll go to San Jose hopefully here quickly, and we'll look at the depth charts, and we'll see that what are we going to deal with in the future for San Jose? We've talked about how many good contracts that San Jose has in terms of just young players, and I don't think this is doing it as well. Like, Sharinshov's probably going to be in the lineup, right? You look in the bottom ends of this team, like, what is Cam Lund, Cardwell, Bystedt? I haven't even gotten into some of these players. Musty is another big one. Granted, he plays on the left side, but what is Colin Graf going to look like, right? Where is his position going to be? Is that, like, was this strategic possibly? Like, what we're going to look at for San Jose? I mean, maybe, I don't know. But in the short term right now, I think this is a very fair deal, $425 for Colin Graf. He gets a chance to possibly get that a little bit higher in the future. Again, for San Jose, as I mentioned, you're probably looking for more term. But 46 points last year, you talk about him just taking a step. Another guy who took a step last year, 11 points in 33 games. Definitely had some positives to him. But outside of, like, the points, like, he isn't going to, if I'm correct, he isn't, like, insanely physical. So for San Jose, I'm hoping another guy, side note, I'm hoping a guy like Michael Misa takes a step, and he's like that second line guy. Really big fan of him. But yeah, there's a lot of excitement in San Jose for good reason. Like, what is this really going to look like? But yeah, like, the Sharks with Graf, I don't know, he's going to be 26 when this is done, right? He's going to be entering his prime. It's an interesting spot to look at for Colin Graf. I wonder if San Jose did that on purpose. I wonder, just because of their winger depth. Like, what is this going to look like? We'll see. But yeah, I like the deal. I think it's a fine deal. I think for both sides it works pretty well. And we'll move on. Another one. Tommy Novak. Yeah, he gets a deal. And I like it. 4.65, 3 years, another 3-year deal. Played pretty well last year. Was it 42 points? Yeah, 42 points in 82 games, 16 goals, 26 assists. Now, I think the one thing to keep in mind is that he's done this on a larger scale, but like a more consistent scale. Back in 22-23, when he really popped off, 43 points in 51 games, 17 goals, 26 assists, follows that with another 45-point season. I think we could see him hit 50. I don't know if we're looking at a 60-point guy. Probably not. Depends who you put on his wing. We'll see. But yeah, Tommy Novak, I think, is a pretty consistent guy. If you have on your second line, is he one of those middle to lower end tier second line guys as a center? Yeah, like fair enough, or winger, however you want to say it, fair enough. But he can produce, and I think this is a very fair contract that can probably turn into a pretty consistently nice contract, perhaps even a somewhat of a steal. I know we're talking about steals in terms of 3-year contracts at $4.65, but I don't think it's crazy to say that considering of what we've seen from him in the past, the opportunity that he's going to get in Pittsburgh moving forward over these next 3 years, right? How long is Malkin going to stay in the NHL? Probably this last year, and he's going to be a lot more consistent, and I could see Malkin being over to the wing, if you want to put it that way. Again, his face-off percentage is insanely great, but again, it's just something to keep in mind. I like the deal. I really like Tommy Novak as a player. I think there is a lot to be excited about in terms of him just getting that contract and what he could do for Pittsburgh. It might progress the mid of Pittsburgh, if you know what I mean, like just them being in the mushy middle. But we'll see. I think that overall, Dubas has done a pretty good job of getting assets, of getting good players to step up, one of those being a Ben Kindle. But we're not going to go into Pittsburgh's future today. We're just talking about the contract here. And yeah, I'm a big fan. The last thing I want to get into here is I started doing value picks on my Instagram, and this one we looked into 2022. We're going to keep going down. A couple days, or maybe it was yesterday. Actually, we did yesterday. Yes, I did the 2021 value picks. Let's start with 2022. Lane Hudson, number 62. I mean, what more can I say about this one? He's turned into a top-level defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens, possibly and arguably one of the better ones in the NHL, depending on how you look at the NHL. I've seen that argument. Do I necessarily agree with him being as one of the better? I mean, top 10, top 12, sure, right? Like, yeah, I think you can make that argument of where he kind of sits in there when we're talking about, like, I don't think people are obviously not arguing this, but like the top 5, 6, no. So, no. One thing to keep in mind here, you'll see the Leafs, Fraser Minten, Nikita Gurbenkin, and Dennis Hildeby, all of them gone. Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. I remember liking that Fraser Minten pick back in 2022, number 38. Nikita Gurbenkin, 135. Again, I think he could be a fourth liner. I'm interested to see how he does. Dennis Hildeby, 122, as a goaltender who's now going to be a backup behind Andrei Vasilevsky, and who I think can be a guy who can step in if needed at times. Yeah, none of them are Leafs anymore. That is a Bruin, a Flyer, and a Bolt. I can't remember if it's Elias or Elias when it comes. I think it's Elias when it comes to Elias number 40, EP40, and Elias when it comes to the defenseman. But number 80, yeah, I mean, he's grown into a defenseman for Vancouver who can play in their top 6 at least on that bottom pair, and maybe even more. We'll see how it goes. Ryan Green. Yeah, number 57. There was one comment in here, and he was like, he should be a career NHLer. I mean, maybe, but like, he almost had 30 points last year. What does he look like with that same amount of ice time? Year +1, right? I'm interested. Probably won't get that this year. But if he's on that third line, I'm interested to see what he could look like. Jimmy Snuggerud, number 23. When you look at the draft and like just the guys who were taken ahead of him, I mean, Snuggerud, like, you saw how he was. He was my Calder pick last year. And, I mean, we always knew it was going to be a very, very big long shot, considering that Demidov was in there, that Schaefer was in there, and some other guys were in there. But I was a big fan of him. He got hurt, but after he came back, he was great. Like, arguably one of the better rookies at the time when he came back. So, it is what it is. But he didn't make it. Noah Laba, we saw the step that he took with the Rangers this year in more ice time, 111. Patra, nobody said it in the comments, but I still think there's a player here. I know there's been a lot of discourse about what he could look like in the future. Like, is he still that top 6 guy? Maybe more of a top 9 guy now, just with how everything's gone. But I don't know. I still think there's a guy there. I still think it's fair to say that he's a value pick at number 54. I think he needs to have a good camp. He needs to have a good camp and be in that lineup. to make a difference. I know I'm saying obvious stuff right now, but there's a player there. I don't think that's crazy to say considering he's still young, but Dominic James. We saw him play big minutes for Tampa in the bottom six. He's a good player. 173, big time value pick. Big time value pick. Steven Holiday. 104. I think with more ice time in Ottawa, like he's going to be a consistent NHLer. I've been fortunate enough to watch him live and talk to him. Like, extremely good dude. He's going to be able to take a good step with more time. Ox Bump, another guy who was given some chance in Philly. We see the GIF on the screen here right now. He is he's an NHLer. I think he's going to be like a third line guy, middle six guy possibly. But he is going to be a fun, interesting piece to look out for. 133, and then of course we talked about him, Dennis Hildeby, 122 as a goaltender. It's so hard to predict goaltenders. Dennis Hildeby was a big time asset. Like, I remember we signed him. I think the Leafs signed him like really quickly, and I was like, oh, like, all right. Like, they kind of do that really quickly. I find the Leafs organization with a lot of their goaltenders, like Akhtiamov, who really shined in the Calder Cup playoffs to their win. Hildeby is going to be a really interesting piece, I think, for Tampa Bay. So we'll see how that one goes. But that was the last thing I wanted to talk about for this podcast. If you have not already, make sure you go like, subscribe, ring that bell, and comment. I want to hear what all of you have to say about this video. If I missed anything or anything you wanted me to talk about in the future, let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you have not, of course, go and check out the other socials. Instagram, here's ZS Hockey, TikTok, my Twitter, or X, if you want to say it that way. Both are the same. I still say Twitter. YouTube, everything else. Go and check that out. We're going to be under Zach Staden as well. But that does it here. My name is Zach Staden, and we'll be talking soon.